Hello, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Brie, and today's video is going to be all the books I read in the month of May. So I had a range of some okay books to some books I really loved, and I'm just excited to share with you what I read this month, and I hope that you also had a good reading month. And if you want to leave a comment down below with what you read, I would really love to hear it. And thank you for being here and just watching these videos and supporting. I really appreciate it, and I love chatting books with you all. And yeah, let's just get into the video. So the first two I want to talk to you about are two that I read on ebook, and so I want to talk to you about them because I am notorious for forgetting them if I don't talk about them first. So the first one I read was The Empress of Salt and Fortune by Nevo. This was one that is a novella kind of fantasy story, and I had heard some things about it, and I just really was in the mood to read a quick short read. I recently got an e-reader. This is the Kobo, and I just really wanted to read something on it, and I wasn't sure what to read, so I picked that up, and I really did enjoy it. It's kind of hard to explain, but it's this story of this like monk who's going around and hearing different people's stories, and so this story is talking with the maid of this queen who was banished, and it was kind of like their story together and the progression of everything that happened and led to the events that you kind of know today. So at the beginning, you know that the queen had been exiled, and there was just a lot of controversy around this queen, and so you're getting the perspective of the maid who really cared for her and kind of grew up taking care of her. And it's like an interesting kind of storytelling style because it feels very much like you're sitting down with an elder and they're like telling you their story, and it has like a fairy tale feel, but it also just really feels like a story that's being passed down. And I really did like it. It was really short. I think some of it went over my head because there'd be like end chapters where they would like ask the monk a question and be like, now do you understand? And then the monk would be like, I think I do. And there was times where I'm like, I don't think I do. But that being said, at the end, I really did enjoy it. I thought it was a good story, and I think I got the overarching plot at the end, and I would continue this little novella series. I think that they are like very, just feel like whimsical is not the right word, but they feel like a fairy tale or like a folk tale. So if you really like that, I would check this out. It was pretty good. I really liked it, and I would definitely continue on. And then I read A Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and I've been really trying this year to expand my reading genres, and one of those genres has been science fiction that I've been trying to read more of and just figure out what I like, because I know I don't love a lot of like super techy type sci-fi. Pippin, sir, can you not? So I've been trying to find some sci-fi that I like, and so far I've had a couple that have been really big hits. So I've read A Song for the Wild Bill by Becky Chambers, which is kind of a cozy, slow sci-fi. And then I read the Murderbot series. I've started the first one, All Systems Red, and I really enjoyed that one. And that one's like kind of a fun, I would say cozy as well, like mystery type thing. But they feel very like low sci-fi. But I decided to pick this one up because I've heard it's really funny and just fun, and so I thought that would be a good one to try, and I know it's been really well loved. And I would say for the beginning, like half of it, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was funny. I liked the beginning. The story is that the world has been invaded and is ended, and then one human along with an alien is gone into space, and one of the alien who takes him into space writes a book called The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and it has everything you need to know about the galaxy in it. And so they're like going around and trying to document different areas. So like they went to go visit the humans and they accidentally got stuck, and so now you're following them with a human, and he is like kind of thrown into this world, and his whole existence of Earth has just ended, so he's dealing with that as well. And it is funny. I had parts where I was like laughing out loud, and there's a robot in here that I think is robot or AI that is just like really fun to read from, and it's just like a great character. His name is Marvin. After like the halfway point, I think it was still funny. It just kind of like lost its spark for me. So I would say I enjoyed it, and I would definitely recommend it. It was just didn't live up 100% to like the beginning half for me. I think it just like kind of meandered a bit, but it's still something I would recommend. I think if you're looking for like a fun kind of sci-fi that is one that I think could ease you into sci-fi, because I definitely think it wasn't over the top for me as a new sci-fi reader. I think it was a really good one to start as a new sci-fi reader. So I read that and I'm happy I did. It was a good exploration into kind of what I like from sci-fi. And then I read, I'm not actually going in order of what I read, I'm just kind of picking up the stack here. So then I read another like okay book, and that was A Tempest at Sea by Sherry Thomas. This one I believe is the 7th book to the Lady Sherlock series. Yeah, so this is the 7th book in the Lady Sherlock series. In this one, we're at sea and there's mystery at sea, and it takes place predominantly on a boat. And the series, if you don't know, is basically if Sherlock Holmes was a woman and she gets ostracized from her family and then meets a Mrs. Watson and becomes her lady's maid, and then they, under the guise of being Sherlock Holmes, they solve crimes. And I have a good time with this. There's like an overarching plot that goes throughout the whole series that I've enjoyed, and I think it's one that the series grew on me. But this one was probably my least favorite. I'm having a hard time recalling some of the earlier ones, but I just feel like this one was lackluster for me. It felt like a filler book. The last one ended on like kind of a big note. There was just a lot that went down in the last book, that this one just felt like it was waiting to like increase the overarching plot again. And so it just felt like a filler book, and I didn't love it quite as much as the rest of them. I also have been discovering that I don't think I love books set predominantly on boats at sea. There's been a couple books, especially mysteries that I've read, where they're at sea the whole time and it's supposed to be like a locked room mystery because they can't leave this boat, and so the killer has to be somewhere on the boat, and that should make the stakes more high, but I find I just don't care as much. Like my mind wanders and I have a hard time picturing the actual setting. So I just think it's not for me. But I have read like The Lies of Locke Lamora, the 2nd book in the series, is set on a boat, and I really loved that. But then I've read another fantasy, Trust with the Emerald Sea, that's predominantly on a boat, and that wasn't my favorite either. So I think there's just something about being on a boat and not like getting any scene changes that is just not my favorite. So this was okay. I would recommend the series as a whole, but this one was not the top book. So this one is one I just wanted to talk about because it's the favorite of the whole month so far. It's definitely above all the other ones I read, and that's The Bangalore Detectives Club by Harini Nagendra. And this is the Kavari and Camus detective story. So there's 2 out. So there's this one, and I think it's called Under a Red Moon. And this is set in 1920s in Bangalore, India, and we're following a woman who's recently been married, Kavari, and she has been married to a doctor who's Camus, and they have a very like endearing relationship. They care for each other, but she's a new wife and she's trying to figure out how to like kind of form to the expectations of women at this time, but also still be herself. And she's just very, I would say she's like a very bubbly personality. She just gets excited about things and is a very like endearing, fun character to read from. So this man who had worked for her husband and he got him a job at the hospital has been missing, and then they find out some stuff about him, and then there is this party that they're at for doctors and he is there, and then another person falls dead, and then he has run away. So they're trying to figure out a couple things: who killed this man, and then why that other man is runaway. Sorry, this feels complicated. It's really not that complicated. And so this whole mystery is them kind of working together and with the police to like figure it out. It's mostly Kavari. She's the main person who's sleuthing, and her husband kind of just supports her. And there's also a group, some other women that become involved in the story that really create like a friendship dynamic with Kavari. And I really liked that story. And I think really what sold me for this so much was the characters. I really loved seeing the relationship between Camus and, sorry, I keep saying Camus. Did I say Camus the whole time? It's Ramu. I think seeing them like evolve in their relationship over time, and just seeing him and how he supports her in a time when women weren't really supported by their husbands, and just seeing like the pushback from society, but the way he still like wants her to be her and is in love with who she is and doesn't try to change that, I really enjoy. And then also just the mystery and there's so much like description of food in here, and like just the way things are described, I just feel like I'm there. The author herself, it lives in Bangalore, and it just is like, it just feels so real. Like you can tell that this author really like cares about the place she's from, and it just comes off on the page. And like I said, the descriptions of food were amazing. So I read this from the library, and it had been one that was like on my radar for a while, but I hadn't picked it up, and I'm so glad I did because I absolutely loved it. And then I got this from Pango for $7, and it was plastic wrapped, like it had never been opened. So not only did I love the book, but I also got it for a steal. Hardback too. So then I continued this chunker of the series. This is the Last Hours trilogy by Cassandra Clare. I read Chain of Gold earlier last month, I believe, and I enjoyed it. And this is the second one. So if you don't know, Cassandra Clare writes the Mortal Instruments series that came out a long time ago, and then this is another trilogy off of that series earlier in time. So it's like Regency time, no, Victorian times. It's shadow hunters. So shadow hunters they hunt demons and stuff. And so in the first one, they have not had a lot of demons lately. Everything's been pretty peaceful, and then one day demons just start attacking. And it's directly following the events of the first trilogy before that, which is the Clockwork Princess. Is it called? No, the Infernal Devices. My God. So it's directly following the Infernal Devices. So you should read that one before you read this series. And this one honestly felt like a filler book. There was some things that I saw coming, things that I didn't. And I would say I enjoyed the first one more than this one. This one just kind of felt like a little lackluster to me. I enjoyed some of the, like, there's always drama in these books, and there's like, you know, romances, will they, won't they, and things happen. And I would definitely finish the reread of the whole thing because I've just been enjoying it from nostalgia purpose. But this one wasn't as good as the first one, and I feel like maybe reading everything back to back, I see like the same kind of plots from like other series that she's written like unfolding in here. So it's like becoming a little predictable. But that being said, like she does write really well, and I just like fly through them. Like even though this is so big, I flew through this because they're just very readable and they're very nostalgic, and I do really enjoy them. I just didn't like this one quite as much as the other one. I just feel like second books in series can tend to be like filler books where I feel like there could have been a little more discovered. Not that there wasn't, I don't know. It wasn't as good. So another absolute favorite book is Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers by Jessie Q. Sutanto. This was released, I think, last month, and it is so good. If you've read Dial A for Aunties, this is the same author as that. And it's another like cozy, over-the-top mystery, but it doesn't have quite the like need to suspend your disbelief like books like Finley Donovan is Killing It or Dial A for Aunties. Those are really like kind of unhinged and wild. This wasn't quite that. It was more that it's a cozy mystery, and we're following Vera, and she runs a tea shop, but it's kind of slowed down. Not a lot of people come anymore, and she's getting older, and she's lost her husband, and her son is no longer like at the house. He has his own life and doesn't really check in all that often. One day she finds a dead body in her tea shop, and she calls the police, but she also decides that she's going to solve this murder. And she ends up kind of talking to a lot of people who are in his life to try to figure out this murder, and there's friendship that forms. There's like found family, so you know I'm gonna love it. What really sold me was the characters in this book. They just are so like lovely, and I love Vera. I think she can be a bit intense at the beginning. She does love to give everyone her unsolicited advice, and the more that she goes throughout the story, the more endearing she becomes, and she just is like someone I really cared for by the end of the book. And there's part that made me cry, and it was really wholesome. If you're looking for like a very wholesome, cozy mystery that still had a fun mystery but is definitely more character focused than mystery focused, I would choose this one because it was so good. And a lot of people have said they liked this one even more than Dial A for Aunties, and I would agree. I have to say that this one, it just had a wholesome feel that the other one didn't. The other one was more unhinged, over the top, and fun. This one is cozier and quieter, but still funny. It was still really funny. So then I finished The Diviners. This is the fourth book, The King of Crows. I get why people don't like this one quite as much as the other ones, and this is really what I've been like. I was worried about hating this one because so many people have like negative opinions on this book, and I don't think I didn't hate it actually. I really did enjoy it. It's just that like truly like probably that much of the book could have been condensed. Let me describe what the series is about. It's about diviners who have these powers where if they touch things, they like can read an object, or they can heal people, or they can dream walk. So they have like a bunch of different abilities. In the beginning, they're solving a mystery. There's been some like sacrifices that are very like ritualistic kind of feeling, and so Evie has been sent from Ohio to live with her uncle, who he is a like professor of the occult. So he is asked to help on this case, and so she and her friends become involved in this, and it just becomes this whole bigger thing that is really a look at the secrets America tries to hold, and like the past that it doesn't want to really like look at. There's a lot of things in American history that we just like kind of sweep under the rug and try to forget about, and this is really about those things and how they can fester and like come back to the surface. And so I think it's a very very powerful series. It's very dark, like a lot darker than I was thinking, but the characters are so real, and I feel so connected to them. And also January Lavoie narrates the audiobooks, which is how I've read these, and does an amazing job. Like really I felt transported into this world, and it's set in 1920s in New York City. A lot of the characters are like separated in this one, and then they're all trying to like get back together and finish all these things. And so it felt a little like meandering because it just felt like so long we were kind of doing nothing. But I still love the characters. I still love being with the characters. So while I didn't think that this was the strongest one, I didn't hate the ending, and I liked the characters still. So like to me, it wasn't terrible. It was just like the weakest book. If I was ranking them, I would rank them like the first book being the best. No, I would say the third book being the best, the first book being my second, the second one being third in line, and then this would be the fourth one, like overall for me. But I think that the way she wrapped it up made a lot of sense, and I did enjoy it. I guess I don't really get why people so dislike it, but I would say I still loved it, but it just wasn't up at the same level as the other ones for me. But I'm really happy I read the series. It's a new favorite series. I would look up like all the trigger warnings because it's really a tough series to read. I did not think it was going to be, I think it leans more horror in a lot of ways, or normal horror, than like I thought it would. But I still really love it. Happy I read it. So then I also read Opium and Absinthe by Lydia King. This is one that had been on my reader for a long time, and I found it at half price and I picked it up and I read it like right away. And it's a historical murder mystery. It's in 1899 New York. So we're following Tilly, who is the younger sister of this sister who kind of is perfect in a lot of ways, is the one that everyone looks up to. And one day Tilly's out and she's riding horses at this event. She doesn't really want to be there, and she has an accident. She falls and she dislocates her shoulder. And then when she is woken up, she finds that her sister has been missing, and they end up finding her sister has been murdered and all her blood has been drained from her body. And this sets Tilly onto this whole adventure of trying to figure out what happened to her sister. But this book actually is less murder mystery and more a character like study and a look into substance abuse and like how that affects you, because Tilly is given laudanum for her pain of her shoulder, and it's much more about her descent into addiction and having to try to pull herself out of this because she's dealing with this huge loss of her sister who meant everything to her, and trying to grapple with what happened to her. So she's also trying to figure out what is going on, but this whole story is kind of like a fever dream because she's not really fully present, and she's just trying to like make everyone else think she's fine and also figure out what happened to her sister, but no one really wants to help her with that. And so there's just a lot going on here. I think that there's just like so much to unpack with the story. I think it's a very like powerful story, and seeing the like grief and the way that Tilly like chooses to deal with that, and like in a lot of ways isn't dealing with that, is just very like very powerful. But I would say, so like the first like half of the story I was like loved it, like thought this would be a new favorite, and then the last bit I did enjoy as well, but the middle was just, it lost me a bit. Since we're dealing so much with addiction and like her character just like going through this. A lot of it just started to feel a little repetitive because it was just like the same types of things she was doing over and over again, and it was like to really get to the point of like what she will do to continue not feeling her feelings. It just lost me because I just felt like we like weren't making progress in the mystery either, so I wanted the plot to move forward, and again, it felt like a fever dream. So it just felt like I couldn't get out of this like fever dream. So it wasn't my favorite, but I still did enjoy it. And I think like the conversation was having was really interesting and really well done in my opinion. It's very dark as well. Tons of trigger warnings. That one area I had to just like skim really fast because it was a lot for me. Sometimes I read historical mysteries and I think that they're light and fluffy and they kind of feel like cozy mysteries to me. And this was not. This was definitely darker. So just know that. So then I read a literary fiction, which is something I've been trying to get better at as well and try to find what I like in the genre because it's not something I've typically picked up in the past. And so for this, I picked up If I Had Your Face by Frances Cha. I've heard really good things about this book before I picked it up, and I just thought it would be something I really enjoy. This is translated from Korean, and we're following, I think it's like 5 South Korean women, and they all live in the same building. We're getting different perspectives, and they're all going through different things. One of them is a salon girl, and she works in these salon rooms where these powerful men come and basically rent out the room and rent out the women for the night to have their like businesses and parties and stuff. And then there's another girl who wants to get into that, but a lot of these girls have plastic surgery, so she is trying to get plastic surgery so that she can become a salon girl. And then there's another girl who had an accident that happened a while ago, but now she no longer speaks. And then there is another girl who is an artist who is dating a really, really rich Korean man, and she just wants to do her art and like live her life. And then there's another woman who is a new soon-to-be mother. She's pregnant and she has a husband, and it's her like journey of motherhood. And really this is a character study of like just glimpses into the lives of these different women and how the beauty standards in Korea affect women and what's expected of them and the pressure that's on them and the like hardships they face, but then how they can still come together and have these like friendships with each other and support each other in so many ways. So I think this was so good. I really did enjoy it, and I find the writing style so interesting because there's a lot of like hard things that are talked about in here with how women are treated, and that's usually a trigger for me. But the way this is written, it's very much like matter of fact. So there's like a paragraph where she's talking about working as a salon girl, and it says, "You work, work, work until your body is ruined and there's no way out but to keep working. Even though you seemingly make a lot of money, you'll never be able to save because of the interest you have to repay. You'll never be able to get out of it entirely. You will move to a different shop in a different city with a different madam and a different set of rules and times and expectations, but it will still be the same, and there is no escape." It's very powerful stuff, but it's just written so like matter-of-factly. So there's just like almost like less emotion to it, but it makes it in a lot of ways more powerful to me because it's just showing it as it is. And I found that so interesting. So I really liked the writing style in here. It's hard for me to like describe, but I do see why people like it. It's just a glimpse into the life of these different women, and I thought it was so interesting and so well done, and I would read another book by this author. Okay, my last 2. So I read The Bullet That Missed by Richard Osman. This is the 3rd in the Thursday Murder Club series. The Thursday Murder Club is about these group of retirees who on Thursdays they meet in the jigsaw room and they solve cold cases. And then in the first one, they find themselves involved in a real life mystery where they have to figure out how this man has died. He dies right after doing a meeting at their place, and he is found like close to their retirement community. And so they go on the hunt to figure out what happened to him, and the characters are just so funny. I loved it so much. I really liked the first one. The second one was my favorite. I gave it 5 stars. I thought it was so good, and this one actually disappointed me a little bit. I think it's my least favorite out of the 3. It just didn't have that same humor that I was looking for. There is a plot. A lot of his plots are a little convoluted. My complaint about the first one was there's just a little bit of too many like plots he was trying to weave together, and I felt like the second one improved upon that and made it much more seamless, and I could see where all the threads were like coming together a lot easier. And this one, it wasn't quite as complicated, but I think almost it just wasn't as interesting for me. That same witty banter that makes me laugh, it just wasn't as good as the other one. So I'm a little disappointed by it. I wouldn't say, I would definitely still continue the series because I do love the characters. It just didn't feel like the same, I don't know, overall fun and cozy vibes as the first two. We got a lot of like points of views from side characters, which he does a lot, but I don't think I cared to be in the head of really a lot of these side characters. So I think it was that too. We didn't spend enough time with the characters I really care about. So that was a little bit of a miss, but it's okay. I will still continue. But then the last book, to end on a good note, is the second book in Before the Coffee Gets Cold, that series. This is Tales from the Cafe by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. This is a like sci-fi, well, I guess you call it magical realism. It's like a time travel story. They're little short stories, but they're all connected about people who go to this cafe and they travel back in time for various reasons. And they have to do it before the coffee gets cold, and there's various sets of rules they have to follow. And I really enjoyed it. I love the first one. It was one of those books that kind of, I didn't think it was going to be a favorite, and then it quickly like stayed with me and became a favorite. And the first one, I cried like almost every story. This one, I only cried on, I think, Mother and Son. But then I was trying to pick like which ones were my favorite, and I can't tell. Like, I can't decide that because I liked Best Friend a lot. I liked Lovers a lot. I loved Mother and Son. So like, I don't think I can tell you which one's my favorite, but overall I feel like this is just a glimpse into humans, like grief and coming to terms with like things in their life that they could have done differently but can't go back and change now, but getting some like closure. And I just really enjoy them, and I really like seeing how all the stories are weaved together, and it just feels very cozy. It's a very cozy like slice of life almost feeling while dealing with stuff that's a little heavier. Every time I read it, I just get like a little emotional about things, but not in a way that like makes me like super miserable. It has a way of like touching my heart in like the best way. And I would recommend them if you're looking for a cozy kind of slice of life, a little bit of magical realism type of books. The second one held up just as much as the first. So, all right. So those are all the books I read. I read a total of 11 books in the month of May, and it's probably my best reading month, I think, in terms of the most, but I've been just happy with reading things that I want to be reading, and so that's what's important here. But yeah, I really appreciate you watching, and I will see you next time.